thank you everyone for being here. You are such a gift to me and the nonprofits that you serve. I'm truly inspired by your commitment to your missions, and I'm just so thankful that you're here and that Brittan was willing to do this with me. We're going to have some fun talking about stewardship made simple, strengthening donor connections for small shop nonprofits. So let's just go ahead and get started. So I would love to know in the chat box, you can do A, B, C, or D. How would you describe your current relationship with donor stewardship? A, it's on fire. B, it's inconsistent. C, I never get to it. And D, what's stewardship again? Can you let us know in the chat box where you are at today with your donor stewardship?
Got 2 C's, Haley, from Jessica Ellen.
Okay.
I never get to it, which is not an uncommon thing. David says, nah, inconsistent. Okay, good answer.
You are not alone. Thank you so much for answering. So today we are going to be talking about reimagining stewardship as a growth strategy. We're not just going to be talking about thanking your donors. We're going to be talking about how to make it a priority, even in your limited time and resources, and really view it as a growth strategy. So we have often seen these challenges that happen in small teams where you wear multiple hats, and it makes it really hard to prioritize stewardship. Stewardship can be viewed as something that's nice to have rather than essential, so it gets deprioritized. There's a lack of dedicated roles focused on donor relations or communications. And urgent fundraising needs often take precedence over long-term relationship building. Planning and executing thoughtful touch points take time that staff simply don't have. Stewardship often falls off the radar once a campaign ends or a gift is received. There's no budget for stewardship tools, print materials, events, or technology. That leads to not being able to afford donor appreciation experiences, gifts, or personalized outreach. Maybe there's not an investment in a CRM system or communication platforms, and the price tag may be out of reach, so it makes it hard to automate some of the stewardship and donor touch points and relationship building with your donors. There could also be inconsistent processes, so there's no standardized stewardship plan or calendar, which we're going to talk about today. Follow-up depends really on who's available rather than a clear workflow. The data isn't consistently tracked or utilized for segmented, personalized outreach. Stewardship happens only when a donor gives a large gift or maybe complains that they haven't received a thank you. And not being able to steward your donors are really missed opportunities to engage donors in between asks. And the lack of intentional stewardship can lead to donor fatigue or disengagement. So we're going to talk about these solutions later in the slides. But first, we're going to talk about some of the mindset blocks that we see are common when it comes to stewardship. So first, let's stop treating stewardship as an extra task and start seeing it as a core to your fundraising strategy. The mindset that we see when it's just an extra task, it's often viewed as a soft skill instead of a really revenue generating strategy, which is mostly in acquiring new donors, over retaining them, or consistently asking donors for their resources. And also, when it's an extra task, you might view your internal metrics on dollars raised rather than relationships built. But the mindset shift has to happen because it's not just an extra task. It really is part of that revenue generating strategy. And if not the most important piece. I've also seen that people want to have their perfection when it comes to stewardship, but stewardship isn't about perfection. It's about personal connection. Perfection is the enemy of consistency. Teams often hold back on donor communication because they don't have the perfect video, the polished packet, or enough time to craft the ideal email. But what donors crave isn't the flash and the fancy, it's authenticity and personal connection. We are all wired for connection. We want to be seen, valued, and heard. So stewardship is more about that human connection and not high production. And lastly, many organizations view fundraising as transactional instead of relational. And they focus on the gift received, the receipt sent, the box checked, that the acknowledgement was sent. But that's not why donors give. Donors give because they want to belong to something bigger than themselves. And stewardship is about building belonging and showing impact. So I would love to know, what's your biggest roadblock to consistent stewardship? Is it time? A, is it confidence in what to say? B, is it lack of team support? C, is it the tech and tools overwhelm? D, or is it E, honestly, burnout? Let us know in the chat box.
So Haley, I serve on a working board outside of work, small working board, and I would say it's a combination of all of those things. What about everyone else? Jessica, David, Ellen? 100% Jessica says of A, time. Yes, I wish we had more time. Ellen is all of them except for C, A, B, D, and E. Okay, David, time. Oh, I wish we all had time.
Thank you all for sharing. According to the latest fundraising report card, nonprofits' average retention rate for first-time donors is only 19%, while the average donor retention rate for repeat donors is 53%, which actually has gone up because I used to think it was like 45% or less than 50%. So that has actually gone up, but it is still a number that, if you think about it, you work so hard to get donors in the door. And then without some of these stewardship practices, only 50% are going to come back. And so that makes it seem like a lot of time and effort wasted trying to get people in the door with only 53% coming back. And then when you work a lot on donor acquisition, which a lot of board members might focus on acquiring new donors, only 19% of new donors come back. And overall, well, according to the fundraising report, which I thought this went up, but apparently they are declining, meaning that organizations must implement new and improved donor stewardship strategies to keep donors interested and willing to give again. And because I love to talk about retention over acquisition, because it is so much easier to find people that are already in your donor database to give again, to give at a higher level than finding new donors. Because at the end of the day, it costs 5 times more to gain a new donor than to keep one, keep them engaged, and keep them giving again and again. So today we're really going to talk about this idea of a culture shift and the mindset shift from really viewing stewardship as a to-do to thank you. We're going to talk about how to, instead of seeing stewardship as a have-to task after someone gives, reframe it as a strategic opportunity to deepen trust, to spark joy, and build long-term support. There's no more ghosting in 2025. There's no more disappearing after the thank you. Stewardship is about showing up again and again in ways big and small, and even small. It does not have to be this big, extravagant thank you. It can be something so small, and we'll talk about some of those engagement points. And it's really about building a lasting connection. Stewardship also shouldn't live in a silo. Whether it's the program team, board members, or volunteers, everyone plays a part in making donors feel appreciated and connected to the mission. it's easy, like I said, before to fall into the trap of send the receipt, check the box. But true stewardship is about creating meaningful moments that connect people to your mission. Because at the end of the day, I think this is a Maya Angelou quote, but people don't remember what you do, but they remember how you feel, how you made them feel. So people remember how you make them feel, and that starts with stewardship. So, what is stewardship? Well, stewardship is the intentional practice of caring for and nurturing relationships with donors after a gift is made. It involves expressing gratitude, demonstrating impact, and continuing to engage your supporters as valued partners in your mission. And according to that fundraising report card, 91% of donors say they would appreciate more updates on how their gifts are used. So, yes, you might think, oh, well, I can't communicate. There's too many people communicating to the donors. Like, I don't want to bother them. Well, according to this, 91% of donors actually want you to talk to them more. So, we're going to do a little exercise. Um, Obviously, I can't see you, but you can see me. Um, I want you to just take a minute to close your eyes or just pause. And I want you to think of one donor who made your day this year. Maybe it was a $10 gift, a sweet note, or a surprising check in the mail. So I want you to just take a few seconds to reflect on this. Now, I want you to, if you're ready, to drop one word in the chat that describes how they made you feel. I see grateful, cared for, inspired, appreciated, joy. I love that. Thank you all for sharing. Appreciative. So today, I'm going to have a few more slides before I pass it off to Brittan. But the main thing that we're going to be talking about, Stewardship Made Simple, is how to create a donor stewardship matrix. We're going to share this at the end. You can also use this QR code to access the an example donor stewardship matrix that you can just make a copy and implement yourself. But the main thing is to focus on donor segments, which we'll get into, the purpose of each donor strategy. You want to identify the appropriate communication channels, create a timeline for each activity, and if not the most important part of any stewardship plan, is assign roles and responsibilities. Who is important for reaching out to each donor segment? So there's a few different ways that you can segment your donors. You can segment them by first-time donors, monthly givers, major donors, mid-level donors, volunteers. You can also segment them by size, so 0 to 250, all the way up to 50,000 plus, and everywhere in between. So you could do it by gift size or type of donor. But for and I do it in the donor stewardship matrix. So again, we'll share at the end, and I can go back to the QR code. But in that donor stewardship matrix, you can divide it by either the gift size or the type of donor. So first-time donors, they are curious, they're new, they said yes to give to your organization, and you want to be able to welcome them and reassure and remind them why they decided to give to your organization. Monthly givers, they are loyal and they're low maintenance. They've subscribed to your organization on a monthly basis. And it's important to show them consistent love, to not just allow them to, have it on their bank account every month that they're giving to your organization. Remind them why they subscribe to your organization in the first place, and also have it build some sort of community and show consistent love to your monthly givers. With your major donors, their traits, it's high impact. They have the affinity and capacity to give to your organization. And it's really about that personalized connection, showing them the impact of their gifts. And volunteers, I feel like this is often a missed opportunity for donors, but they're loyal. They show up. They get their hands dirty. They serve in the most meaningful ways within your organization. And there's an opportunity to recognize their value and say thank you for showing up on a day-to-day basis or weekly, however often they show up. But it is important to recognize their value because they are loyal to your organization. It's also important to understand your communication preferences. So, based on each donor segment, so you want to ensure donors feel appreciated. And the best practice um, is to thank them within 48 hours. Depending on the donor segment, might want to recognize them publicly via social media, an annual report, a donor wall, or a lot of donors actually that I've come across, not all, like anonymous giving. So you really have to respect how the donors want to be recognized and how they want to be acknowledged. When it comes to reporting, you want to demonstrate impact through impact reports, quarterly updates, customized reports for major donors and foundations. And with ongoing engagement, you want to maintain that two-way engagement. Invite them to events, to volunteer, to send out a survey or ask for feedback. Invite them to advocate on behalf of your organization. And you can also give them the behind the scenes of what happens on the day in and day out of your organization. It's also really important to regularly qualify your donors when it comes to stewardship, because it ensures that your time and resources and engagement efforts are directed towards individuals who both have the capacity and interest to give. By identifying and understanding donor motivations, giving potential, and preferred ways of involvement, organizations can build stronger, more personalized relationships. This strategic focus enhances donor retention, deepens commitment, and ultimately supports the long-term fundraising success. So I would love to know from you, what's one stewardship activity or idea that works for you, even if it's really tiny? What is one thing that even if you don't have the time or, the tech, what is something that you have tried that works for you? Shout outs on social media to donors. I love that. A handwritten note, inviting donors to your events. These are all wonderful. Oh, I love that, Brittan. I like to pre-qualify donors with a highly personalized email, and only if they respond, I make a follow-up phone call. Yes, the follow-up is key. And with that, I am going to pass it off to Brittan to talk about where donor stewardship really starts.
Let's do it. First off, Haley, thank you so much for letting me co-pilot with you today. Yeah, so some of you might know me. I'm Britt. I'm a fundraiser coach at Donorbox. And, one thing I would say about Donorbox, we have a powerful fundraising platform. Think of campaign features, an amazing donation form, live kiosk. One thing our global team is proud to say is as of last February, we passed helping 100,000 nonprofits raise $3 billion. And why the heck we're talking about the donation form is, I get it. It's probably not one of the things that is top of mind for you, right? Like I'm imagining you having a crazy to-do list. What do? We set it up, it works, and then we move on. But one thing that you're going to learn and why I'm here today joining Haley is that your donation form is a big deal. It's think of it as your very first opportunity to bake in a mini stewardship opportunity from the get-go. When your donor makes their first donation, what they're essentially doing is they're saying, oh my goodness, David, oh my goodness, Ellen, I see you, I believe in you. And that's why we're going to talk about your donation form. Haley touched on this earlier. The Fundraising Effectiveness Project said nearly only 70% of donors, they're never going to return. Not because they don't care, not because they don't want to, but because they don't feel a true connection. And so thinking about this a little bit more, asking you a question. When it comes to your donation form right now, I'm imagining a lot of you have donation forms set up on your website right now. Is your donation form, is it simply functional? Is it a payment processor and then move on? Or is it truly a stewardship opportunity that initiates some sort of conversation? Let me know. Drop your thoughts in the chat. I'm curious about this. And if you don't have a donation form, no worries. These things are going to come into handy for when you do set up one. David says transactional, no shame. This is honestly how most donation forms are built, and we're going to talk about it. Anyone else? Ellen, Jessica, anyone else? Do you guys have a donation form? Jessica says the same. Ellen says the same. Okay, well, let's talk about it. Obviously from what I'm hearing in the chat is, yeah, Britt, my donation form can use a little bit more work. Zero judgment. And this absolutely has nothing to do with you, because let's be real, most donation forms, they are built to do only very basic things, right? What are those things? Collect basic information about your donor, process payment, send a receipt, bing, bing, boom, move on. They're collecting the what. But what they're missing is an opportunity, a chance to kick off a mini stewardship opportunity to build relationship and to get to the why, okay? The good news is you don't have to completely overhaul whatever donation form you're using. You don't have to tear it down. You don't need a fancy tech team. What you need to know is you need to be cognizant of the right type of features that are going to allow you to do the fundraising that you should be doing as a fundraiser. It's not transactional fundraising, it is relational, okay? So in the short time I'm going to talk to you today, I'm going to share with you 3 tips that I share with my coaching clients to get to the heart, to get to the why. And in the fundraising world, we call them psychographics. What motivates a donor to give? What do they value? Okay, so 3 things, 3 very minor things that your donation form should offer to start building that two-way connection. Number 1, make it personal. Most donation forms are great at tracking what? They're great at tracking what fundraisers call RFM, recency of a donation, frequency, how frequent do they donate, and what the monetary value is. Again, that is the what. That's great, but does it get to the heart of what motivates a donor? We really need the psychographic intel, the why. And one simple way to make a donor feel seen, and a lot of donation forms don't do this, is to ask an open-ended question. Add that baby to your donation form. What inspired your gift today? What does that do? It's no longer being hard-handed talking at them. You're inviting them in to share a piece of who they are. And as humans, what do we know? Innately, we love to share what it is we do, what we value, what we're interested in. That tiny shift right there, adding a custom question that gets to the heart of their values, their motivations, their interest, it's going to give you the level of psychographic qualitative data that you need to do that stewardship that Haley is talking about, to know how to show up with them, to know how to talk to them, to get to the heart, to get to their heart, Okay, and trust me, you're going to notice an energy shift just with that one question. Number 2, let donors choose what the heck they care about. I don't know about you, people are fatigued. People are becoming more skeptical of nonprofit work, which is such a shame, and a little bit more cautious, right? One thing also, I'm a working mom of 2 little kids. A lot of us are not big on surprises, especially when it comes to our money. We are valuing more in 2025 as donors, as supporters, as whoever, a sense of ownership and autonomy. Your donors want to know where their money's going, and even more, they want that level of transparency and they want choice. So, on your donation form, are you giving them the choice in terms of where they want to put their dollars into what? A lot of donation forms don't do this, but something to look into. Can you add what are called program impact designations? It's simply a low-lift drop-down list of different program initiatives that give your donors the ability to choose, okay, well today, Britt, I want to choose to donate to the food pantry. Okay, actually, the next donation, I want to choose to where it's needed the most. Again, with a simple drop-down of program designations, you're building trust, you're creating transparency, and you're giving them that level of autonomy that they need. Plus, not to mention, as a data queen, it's going to give you a clear sense of the data you need for that segmentation to know to, first off, do an analysis of, oh my goodness, out of all of my donors, for some reason, they keep donating more to my direct outreach program as opposed to education. It's going to give you the type of data that you need to do that level of segmentation and to create highly targeted engagement going forward. Okay, so that's 2, let them choose. And 3, not rocket science, use a recurring donation feature. I always tell my coaching clients this. We look at their data and come to find out, well, shoot, a substantial number of their donors, they're willing and they're wanting to give on a recurring basis. Well, heck, why not make the recurring donation feature as the default option on your donation form? You're not forcing them to pick it, but it's kind of the first touch point when they engage with your donation form. What we know from recurring giving, I think this was from a Network for Good study, is that donors who give on a recurring basis, they're going to donate 42% more per year than your one-time donors. What else do we know about recurring revenue? It is the, if not one of the only strongest indicators of your nonprofit's sustainability, your future stability. So a low-lift, easy option to default to a recurring basis. One thing that I love about Donorbox, we have what's called a recurring donation upsell feature. And the way it works is if a donor makes a donation, a one-time gift of $200 or less, they automatically get a gentle prompt to turn their one-time donation into a recurring gift. Super easy, okay? These essentially, what these are 3 tips that I give in my coaching sessions. Low lift, simple. I do recognize that many of you probably may not use Donorbox. That is absolutely okay. What I'm trying to encourage you to do is, if you're using a different donation management platform, it might be worth asking if they offer these 3 features. I'm a former development director / ED doing it all. I don't have time for these types of things. This is a low lift, easy way to increase your revenue in 2025. Okay. So question for all of you, and these 3 things, I'm going to drop the resources in the chat so you know exactly what kind of the experience is like on a technical basis. But my question for you is, okay, we set up the donation form. Do you think the stewardship has ended? You've collected the level of intel from, what's driving them to make a gift. Do you think stewardship stops there? I want to hear what you think. Yes or no? Ellen says no. Jessica, no. You guys are right. Absolutely. So let's talk about it. David, of course not. Yes, of course not. Well, okay. So your donor just made their first time donation. What's the moment like? They're excited. They're connected. Heck, I remember getting those email notifications that a donation rolled in. There's adrenaline. It's a high for everyone, right? We're all feeling good. But then what happens? How many of you, dear friends out there listening in, are sending an automated thank you / receipt? You have it set up, it's sent, you haven't even touched it. Let me know. Are you sending out an automated thank you and receipt email? And if so, is it personalized? Drop your thoughts in the chat. But from what I know, as we're talking, this is what's happening. A donor makes their first time donation, they get an automated thank you email and receipt. It's probably the standard dry, quick, and personal thanks for your donation. There might be a donation summary, no call to action. What's happening? This is a missed opportunity. Such a simple way, a missed opportunity for stewardship, for building connection, for deeper engagement with your donors. I don't know how many of you have heard of Penelope Burke. She's kind of a famous fundraiser in our sector. I do remember in her book, Donor-Centric Fundraising, she talks about if you want lifetime loyal donors, 2 things need to happen. 1, you need to send out that thank you and receipt within 48 hours. That acknowledgement has to be timely. The second part of it is personalization. So I'm encouraging you here, dear friends, in your thank you. It might be automated. That's great. In your thank you / receipt. What are you doing? Are you using that as a stewardship opportunity to engage them on a deeper level? Let me know if you are, and I would love to hear some creative thoughts. What I suggest here to my coaching clients when you're tapping into your automated thank you and receipt is personalization. And the first touch point is donors, again, they want to see that you're applying their donation in real time and there's already some sort of immediate impact. So the key here in the body of your messaging is not just personalization of their contact information, what they gave to, what was the amount, to what type of campaign. You need to be highly specific and tie that donation amount to a very specific outcome, okay? Where it gets tricky, where a lot of nonprofits miss the mark, is they completely skip a call to action altogether. So you're essentially not driving your donors anywhere, right? They're just going out to the ether, or they're making already another hard, explicit ask. We wouldn't do that. We get a birthday gift, and then we wouldn't come to our friend or our loved one and say, hey, can I get another present again? No. The key here is personalization, being specific, and then your call to action is a very soft type of action where you're planting the seed for what's next. You're not going to ask them for money, right? Think of it in your email 1. This is essentially your email 1 of a sequence that we're going to talk about here in a bit, but it's setting the intention, it's setting some sort of expectation of what's to come, and it's giving a preview of future engagement. So for those listening in, I want you to think about, and if you can't process this right now, that's okay. What type of creative call to action, next move, non-monetary ask that you can bake into your automated thank you and receipt to get your donors to engage on a deeper level? Let me know. David says a link to your annual report. Ooh, I love the way you're thinking, because what you're doing here, David, is you're essentially validating that you're legit as an organization. You're showing impact. It's very impact centric. Let's see, Haley. Yes, CTA is planting the seed for what's next. Yes, use their first name. Definitely. We don't want to use Strangers and different first names. Ellen, handwritten thank you notes. Yes. Handwritten thank you notes always come into play to support this automated thank you email and receipt. Yes, I love it. Okay, so as I've asked the audience before, does stewardship start, does the buck stop here? Does it stop here? Yes or no? I think you guys all know the answer. No, definitely not. No, no, no. Okay, so let's talk about it. The whole point of this webinar, a lot of the things that we're teaching on, not rocket science, right? But they get put on the back burner. And so what we're trying to give you are simplified, tangible tools to keep the stewardship going. What we know about stewardship, it's not a one and done deal. Like Haley says, we don't ghost our donors. We got to keep the momentum going because we're in the relationship building business. So you have your donation form set up. I've given you 3 tangible tools to build that two-way relationship. You really personalize your automated thank you and email, and you also bake in a CTA that where you're sending them next to deeply engage. And then the third part of it is what's called, what we call a drip campaign, a 3-part email series essentially for your first-time new donors. Now, I know most of you may not have a CRM or even the technology to set up like a very fancy, costly CRM to set up an automated drip campaign, but there are tools out there. Are you using MailChimp? Are you using Constant Contact? I know in even Gmail, you can set up a very simple 3-part email series to keep the momentum going. And so let's talk about it. In my coaching sessions, we focused on the donation form. We really focused on the automated email to really encourage two-way conversation. Well, then the third part of that is a 3-part email series that needs to go out. Think of your email number 1 as that automated acknowledgement, the thank you and the receipt that goes out within an hour of the donation. We already talked about that, right? The key here in terms of the core theme is gratitude, is acknowledgement, is setting the intention and the expectation, and then giving them a preview, a heads up of, hey, stay tuned, we're going to be sending you stuff. Okay, so that's already happening. We already have that baked into the 3-part series. Well, for email 2, as David said, this is really all about impact. Okay. Impact here, your annual report. What ways can you show that you're a reputable, a legitimate nonprofit? You're already showing impact in real time to a donation that they made. You know, this might be a short and sweet case study video. It might be a written testimonial. You're going to want to pair, let the voice come from those you're serving with a firsthand story. You're going to want to tie the tangible outcome of how their gift is already making an impact. And the difference here between email 1 and 2 comes down to the call to action. This is still a soft ask. It's not yet the hard ask that you're going to be outright making explicitly. It's a soft ask. One thing that I suggest is you need to encourage your supporters to get closely connected with you. Email 2 is all about how you're going to bring them in closer to your communication so they have a full 360 view of what you're doing. And so one thing that I always recommend in terms of the call to action is, hey, friends, come hang out with us on our socials. Check out, however you can glue them in to getting that full view will be your call to action. Okay, so number 2 is showing the impact, weaving in those firsthand voices that aren't coming from you, dear friends, the nonprofit. It's coming from the people you're serving, like a case study video or an impact testimonial. And then the call to action is to get them connected across different platforms. That usually goes out 2 days after that automated email that we had talked about earlier. And then finally, so easy, 5 to 7 days later, it's about building the connection. drawing them into something bigger than themselves. Okay, so email 1, you've acknowledged them. Email 2, you validated them with their gift and you've shown what it's already doing, impact. Email 3 is you're inviting them as part of a larger community. Okay, things that I've seen here when you're inviting them to be part of a community, it's engaging them in non-monetary ways. Haley had mentioned volunteering opportunities, voting on a new name of your program, signing a petition if you work at an advocacy-led organization, showing up to a community outreach resource fair. In terms of the call to action, this is the bing, bang, boom moment when your ask is actually explicit. And that ask is you're going to ask them to subscribe to your mailing list. Not rocket science. Why that matters is, again, I'm going to drive deep into this. 70% of your first-time donors, they're not going to give again. We got to keep them in the loop. They're going to have to be continually engaged and followed up with. So what we're doing here is we're giving them a preview of what's to come. We're getting them connected through different social media channels. And then the hard ask is now subscribe now as part of our mailing list, okay? None of this is rocket science, but what I'm trying to remind you is you set up your donation form. It just lives there. And there are all these missed marked opportunities to not just throw out feedback to your donors, it's to start collecting information from what matters most to them, right? So your donation form, I've given you something that you already have access to, that automated thank you and receipt email that you really need to personalize. And then I've given you some very simple ideas for a 3-part drip campaign. I hope that helps. I am always available right while Haley is talking. I'm going to drop in some links to a couple of resources, and I'm always free to connect. I'm always happy to help with the stewardship piece. Haley, is there any other killer tips that you have for stewardship? I'll pass a baton back to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Brittan. And I really appreciate this insight that stewardship starts with the donation form before someone gives, and how to continue to engage them after the gift. And we have a few bonus offers at the end, so stay tuned. We only have a few more minutes, so we'll get there. But there are different engagement opportunities, like Brittan said, to invite people into the organization in a more meaningful way after you've sent some of those emails. This could be personalized outreach, thank you calls and letters, stories of impact, videos. I have a cell phone, you have a cell phone. It does not have to be a pretty video. A few years ago when I was working in-house, I just took my phone. There was a drive-through grocery pickup. Over 300 families would come every Friday. There was a corporation that had given us a first-time gift of $60,000. And we were partnering with them. And I just stood there and I said, hey, with my phone, and I said, hey, thank you so much for giving. This is how you made an impact. These are the families that are coming through our drive-through grocery, and this is what's now happening because of your gift. And it was just on my phone, and they loved it. They were so appreciative of the video because it was simple, it was authentic, and it wasn't high production. Although we did do some high production videos for events and things like that, but just the authenticity and the extra thought of, hey, this is what's happening and this is how you've made a difference, was a huge connection point for them to continue to consider giving again and again. Volunteer opportunities, you can invite your donors in a more meaningful way to really experience the organization, depending on how it's structured. If you're working with youth, I know that it's a little bit, there's some more barriers to people volunteering, but are there ways that people could put together backpacks and they don't necessarily have to interact, or gifts or things like that? They don't necessarily have to interact with your clients, but there are ways that they can help support them. Like Brittan said, maybe a gratitude email series, a welcome email series. I also have a link somewhere, I think it's on my website, to a donor survey. Get impact from your donors at least once a year, maybe twice a year, on why they give, what communication channels they prefer. Do they like direct mail? Do they like phone calls? And then make sure to record those communication channels so that you're communicating appropriately with your donors. And then you can also track through a donor survey, you can also track their passions and interests. So, do they like a particular program? Well, if you're raising money for this particular program, you know to reach out to the specific donors who show interest in that program. And like I said before, I believe that one of the most important things when it comes to donor stewardship is to assign roles and responsibilities. That team alignment when it comes to stewardship is key to the effective execution of it. So you want to schedule a regular time with your team, whether that's volunteers, your development team, your marketing team, your board, whoever is involved in the stewardship process, or your program team, because they are the ones on the ground that have the stories. Um, you want to get on the same page and make sure that every single person understands their roles and responsibilities when it comes to stewardship so that you're able to hold each other accountable. You also want to be able to ask, what is working? What is working really well that we are already doing to effectively steward our donors? And then also ask, what could be added to improve the donor experience? You really want to have that epic donor experience from before the donation form, like Britt said, all the way through to the next gift and beyond. So, what could improve that donor experience where people feel like they belong to your organization? And then you want to decide which staff or board member will reach out to each donor group. And again, in the donor stewardship matrix, which she is going to drop a link to, it helps you assign those roles and responsibilities. So, is a board member responsible for personally reaching out to your major donors, or is it the executive director? Who's responsible for adding them to the newsletter or sending out the impact reports? It's really important for people to understand what their expectations are and what their roles and responsibilities are. Stewardship is a team sport. It is not something that happens in silos. And also, when there isn't that internal team alignment and that culture of stewardship, donors can feel it. And so, you want to be able to create a gratitude team where there are specific people who are responsible for celebrating the donations that come in and thanking your donors. You can provide simple scripts that help them be able to either craft emails to those specific donors or pick up the phone and call them and really get to know the donors and why they gave. And then again, assign those stewardship roles and who is responsible for each part of the stewardship process. So again, you'll get a copy of this, but and it is by gift size and type of donors. But you want to understand like new donors, how often are you going to be communicating to them? Is it monthly? Is it quarterly? What are your stewardship ideas? Is it sending out personal thank yous? Is it sending them an impact report? And then again, who is responsible for that? And that goes through all the donors, mid-level donors, event donors, recurring donors. What is when it comes to frequency, it's the number of times you're going to communicate with them throughout the year. So is it monthly, quarterly, biannually? What's the frequency of communication? What are the stewardship ideas for each of those groups and types of donors? And then who is responsible for managing those donor types? Technology, when it comes to stewardship, is your friend. Like Britt said, you could use Constant Contact, you can use MailChimp. You want to be able to help set up those email automations and automate as much as possible. And through automation and technology, you can actually personalize those touch points. So You can send birthdays or, like she said in the donation form, you want to collect as much information as possible. You can also do that again through a donor survey. But maybe it's like an annual gift. Maybe it's 1 year since they gave. You can celebrate them. Is it an anniversary or an important date in their life that you want to celebrate? In your CRM, you want to add tags and notes and as much information as possible when it comes to donor preferences, whether that's the programs that they're interested or the way that they want to be communicated with, and any past gifts that they've given, the date, the amount, and past touch points. So you really want to be able to manage that, what people call moves management cycle, where they are in the cycle, how you've communicated with them, so that if anyone walks into your donor database, they know the relationship, the amount that the donor has given, and the frequency in which they give. You can use text tools. I get texts from nonprofits sometimes, and you can use platforms like Donorbox for that personal feeling text. You can use Canva. I just attended Canva Create last week, and I use Canva every day. We're using Canva for this to create beautiful, quick thank you graphics. And I like to say I'm a savvy fundraiser, not a savvy technology person or savvy marketer or graphic designer. But if I can make a graphic in it, so can you. And so it's just easy to create those social media graphics or graphics for your newsletters. And then video tools. You can use Loom or again, like your phone for personalized FaceTime. It's also really important when it comes to stewardship, you want to track and collect data. So use a shared spreadsheet. I have been there in organizations that have Excel. You also want to use a CRM if you have it. And if you have a CRM, you're paying for it. So use it to track your stewardship touch points. So again, you want to track that donor name, the gift date and amount, your stewardship actions. Did you send a thank you call, handwritten note, an impact report? Did you meet with them? Did you pick up the phone? The date of the last contact, who was responsible for reaching out to them. So again, if someone comes in, they know who to reach out to and where the relationship is at. And then what's that follow-up? What is that follow-up that's happening after the initial stewardship? And what is that next date? And then in most CRMs, you can set a task, and then it'll remind you on that specific date when to follow up. You can also use other project management tools, but from what I know in the CRMs that I've used, you can actually set a task for that specific person so that you know when to follow up. And you want to define those key metrics beyond just dollars raised. So, number of personal thank you calls per month. You can set that monthly. Depending on your fundraising strategy, you're going to have a monthly goal. And so, how does that break down into daily? Do you have a gratitude hour where you call people each day to thank them, or get to know them better based on the gifts that they've given? The number of donor meetings that you've gotten, the percent of donors who receive a thank you within 48 hours. How is your process efficient? Or is there things that need to be updated to make sure that people are being thanked immediately? What is the retention rate? Like we gave you some of those stats of first-time donors, of recurring donors. What is the lifetime value of your donors? And what is the donor upgrade rate? So you've thanked them, you've gotten them involved in your organization. Are they giving more than they did last year? So that's about wrapping it up. And we would love to know in the chat box, what is one gratitude action that you want to try this week? Is it a thank you phone call, B, a surprise update email, C, a stewardship matrix, which again, you're getting a link so that you will be able to um, link to it. D, starting a stewardship hour. Are you going to set aside time this week to simply pick up the phone and thank your donors? Or E, just remembering donors are human. Let us know in the chat box. B. A surprise update email. I love that. Well, these are the special offers that we have. You can book a donation form audit. And again, she linked to a checklist for a donation form, but Brittan has so generously offered a free donation form audit. So I highly recommend taking her up on that. And then for me, I am going to be offering a free donor stewardship strategy audit. So I will go with you through your donor stewardship strategy and ways that you are working really well, and then also ways to improve so that you can continue to raise more revenue and make a bigger impact for your mission. Thank you so much for being here, for those who have stuck with us to the end. And Brittan, I just really appreciate you doing this with me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining. And Haley, I'm happy to stay on for 5 more minutes to create some space for questions. Does anyone have questions for us about what we presented on today? No questions. I hope everyone's feeling great. Ellen, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. We've offered some great audits with this donation form audit. It's a 30-minute call, and happy to take a look at what you currently offer and just bake in those low-lift ways to really increase revenue. And Haley and I tag team, we co-pilot, so we can make it really accessible with your busy schedules. Thank you so much for joining. All right. Have a great week, everyone. Take care.